Hey everybody, welcome back. So I want this video to be the first installment to a sub-series I like to call Decentering Dick, aka Men, which will be a part of my overall series of the Lover Girl Level Up Guide. Initially, I was actually going to name my channel Lover Girl Level Up Guide because I have a lot of things that kind of fall under this that I want to talk about. And I actually had a blog about these topics, but I didn't want to limit myself as far as branding. But anyway, I wanted to quickly speak on the Cardi B and Offset divorce situation. Their relationship always kind of disturbed me. And I don't follow celebrity stuff super closely, but Cardi is a hot topic all the time. So people tend to share her drama a lot. She's divorcing this scoundrel, and I want to talk about how men will baby trap pretty women to humble or slow a woman down while artificially uplifting themselves. People are somehow blaming Cardi B for Offset's lack of integrity, discipline, and I suspect low self esteem. But how is that even her fault? I noticed that people tend to blame women for men's misconduct, and when it comes to exoticals, even more so because it's, oh, your looks couldn't keep him. Or they assume that you didn't do enough in the relationship because you thought you just being yourself was enough. Or, oh, you're too good because you decided you didn't want to be tolerate being embarrassed publicly for the rest of your fucking life. And when people blame women for a man's infidelity, I just hear them saying, well, you didn't lower yourself enough to make him feel good, and so that's on you. When the man probably pursued the woman who he knows is above him for being above him in the first place. And a lot of men will do that to absorb that woman's essence, especially via sex. And I'll get into that whole process, sex magic, into another video so I can go more in depth. But I want to note that the glorification of the preference to baby mama pipeline is the exact example of a downside of pretty privilege. But really, it would just kind of fall under the category of how people love anticipating the suffering of beautiful women in general. Instead of holding men accountable for being irresponsible with their seed and being sexually undisciplined to the point that they impregnate women they have either no or maybe malicious intentions for, misogynists and internalized misogynists place the blame completely on the woman. If it's one thing that patriarchy hates more than a woman, it's a pretty woman. So this phenomenon is highlighted and reveled at like a circus because single motherhood is a pretty woman's punishment for thinking she deserved better than the observer. And the thing about it is, when you're a pretty woman, there is no winning or forgiveness for anything you do or that happens to you. If you're victimized, well, you shouldn't have drawn attention by being born with a symmetrical face. If you're impregnated by a lying bum, well, you should have clocked it and gave the ugly nice guy who would have done the same thing a chance. If you decide to have standards and limit people's access to you, now you're a sedity bitch, a gold digger, you're snooty. It doesn't matter. They didn't intend for you to win because they feel like you already won too much. And then people will say, well, you saw who he was. Nah, y'all act like most men are conditioned to be sociopathic and aren't Oscar worthy actors when putting on personas until they have you where they want you. And some can do that shit for literally fucking years. So that's victim blaming, honestly. You can't vet that. You can only hold yourself accountable for dipping out when you recognize the bullshit. And she didn't. So she does have to be accountable for that. But again, they can put that shit on for years at a time, a lot of times. But what's crazy is him trying to shame her for doing her little dirt to deflect from his own hoe ass tendencies. And people are trying to crucify her for cheating once or twice on a man she said cheated on her every month for 7 years. It's insane. And it shows how people expect women to suffer silently. People don't see cheating as abuse, but it is. It's just a very passive aggressive form of emotional abuse that's usually rooted in insecurity. He wanted to break her down to feel lower about herself because he knows he's lower than her and she can find better. And once he realized her confidence wasn't really going away, he kept pumping her full of babies to lessen the likelihood that either one, another man will want her, or two, she'll just stick around for the kids so he doesn't lose access to her money because his ass is a gold digger, or three, slow down her success just enough to make himself feel better, but not enough to slow her cash flow. Cardi told Offset that she was always too good for him. And I've had similar situations in the past. I, thank God, left it without children. but the gist was still the same. And even some friendships with weirdos. But it really taught me that I need to stop pretending like I'm not too good for people. And I spoke to my bestie about this, like, girl, we have to stop shaming ourselves out of our better judgment and feeling bad for knowing someone is beneath us. Grimy motherfuckers know they're grimy. And most times, people will tell you that you're too good for them. Always believe them because they know themselves and know when they're just putting on a show and there's no substance behind what they're showing you. I'm not saying I'm above them as a human, but I was indeed better than them character wise, which might have also reflected superficially. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but I make a conscious effort to protect my bonds by not harming people with my behavior because to me, that's love, protecting you from my shit. And what I mean is, everyone is traumatized to some degree, right? But I try my hardest to heal and protect people by not letting things trigger me into my toxic behaviors by trying to understand things objectively first. But then when I see people just spilling on me or bleeding their toxicity on me or trying to use me in general or use me as a punching bag, I'm like, oh, okay. You're not trying to protect me from you. Got it. You can get these problems. And unfortunately for them, my toxic trait is almost a sociopathic level of detachment. Like, folks will high key feel like I never gave a fuck about them. Like, the rate at which I kill you off of my storyline and not feel anything is insane. And I'll carry on like I never met you and will burn down any mental real estate you occupy. And though I used to be more vindictive, at some point I just kind of, you just grow up and you're like, well, I learned. Keep moving. Then you forget the motherfucker and continue to age gracefully. But it's crazy to me how people will call beautiful women stuck up and mean, or will talk about how we have quote unquote weird energy, but then turn around and fault us for being humans and letting our guards down. And it's unfortunate if it's for people who deliberately had every intention of being deceptive and manipulative toward us or trying to benefit off us without reciprocating. And I feel that's what happened to Cardi because Offset asked Cardi to marry him. He didn't have to do that. He could have let that lady go about her business. Instead, he kept putting babies in her to slow down her career that he's jealous of. He kept breadcrumbing her because he knows she's worth significantly more than him. And she was doing shit like gifting him 500K for his birthday and shit, probably paying his back taxes, which after this, I let Uncle Sam come get his stupid ass. But the fact that the Offsets and Futures are the type of men that the collective of men will gas up on social media while being products of absentee fathers with no integrity is disgusting and proves that men protect abusers while waiting for their turn to abuse. And then they'll call us mean for having no sympathy when a TikTok nurse tells us how men typically drown on their own throw up in a nursing home and no one cares. But I don't want to get into that. I want to get into this. So Offset tweeted that everybody can see I don't want you. It's okay. I'm not talking about this no more. All love. You will be calling me after a couple months. You my baby mama. I won. See, this is how they think. And this is why I keep my coochie on clank clank. Because they don't want you or have the integrity to make a relationship and family dynamic with you last. They want to feel like they've conquered you and they've tamed you. He said sit down and she sat down. He's saying you let me bring you down to my level and let me play in your face while giving me more than I deserve. He's saying he tricked her into investing her emotions into loving him. It made her put her successful career on the back burner to raise his seed, which seems like he just hands that shit out freely, so it's not really even a privilege. He didn't want her. He wanted to tether himself to her via children to make sure that he's always hooked to her and can brag about it for social status and clout in the streets. Or attract low functioning male identified women who think sliding on his community dick is a win. For men who don't plan on contributing very much to society in a meaningful way, they tend to view their lineage as their legacy because all they know how to do is fuck. Therefore, replicating themselves by quote unquote conquering the best and most exotic of women is all that they have. And the more children the women have by these low vibing bucks, the more likely the woman is to stay loyal to him while he philanders. And if they do this to multiple women, then they'll just land in the home of whoever is better off economically once the ED is in full effect. And I truly think the humbling isn't going to work because Cardi looks good and is still rich and can get whatever man she wants. It's why she was able to find someone to D her down while she was with child. It's crazy. Men really do think women are like objects and babies are like my germs, and they think no one else is going to want to touch her. That's not how being a human works, sweetie. Most desirable women are always desirable, but that's just based on how I saw men chase after my mom. That's just a narrative men like to spew publicly while secretly sliding those DMs. Like, even he's lying like he doesn't want her while asking her to listen to him jerk off. Like, yeah, okay. Moral of the story, stay sedated, ladies. Guard your womb. Protect your pH. Don't be gaslit out of your standards and acknowledging when someone isn't on your level. Although I suggest against it, be careful with who you offer your womb to, because it'll only end with him saying that he quote unquote won, as if tiny human beings are trophies to prove you broke a woman down or some shit, and not human beings you will have to watch grow into adults who will see that you're full of shit someday. But that's all for this one. Hop in the comments, let me know what you think about this whole situation if you're tracking it. And are you on Cardi or Offset side? Clearly, I'm on Cardi's side. Let me know after you hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.